I was just mentioning, most kids are going back to school, so it's always a good reminder. There's more kids out waiting for buses on the streets in the morning, especially as the days start getting shorter, as we have less daylight in the morning and in the evenings. Just a good reminder to keep an eye out as you're driving into work or dropping kids off at school, that there's more activity on the streets early in the morning and later in the day is to be aware of. I know I had a discussion last week with someone who was a rude awakening. Even though they're mostly playing and very excited for them to pick up to school. So just a reminder to keep an eye out, and then in addition, more buses on the road, school buses and whatnot, so remember to stop when they do, and that once they do stop, even though it may look like things are clear, there's still kids, across the street and all that, so just a fall reminder. So we've got a good agenda. I'll turn it over to Tom Dolan here in a second, who has a presentation for us. We're going to spend a little bit of time with April and the recap of the Virginia is Nuclear Summit that we had a few weeks back. It was very successful. We'll get into that. And then some other announcements, and I do want to spend a little bit of time in advance of our final meeting of the year on the annual report that will be, we can review a little bit of last year's and get ready for drafting of this year's report, so we can be ready to vote and finalize that at our final meeting and be able to send that over to the Assembly in advance of next year's session. So with that, I think we will hold off on the approval of the minutes, since we're one person short of a quorum. If we have someone else join us, then we will vote to approve those. If not, we will hold that for the November meeting. And then one other just housekeeping announcement. For those of you who worked with her, Regina from BWXT is actually retiring. She sent Brandy and I her resignation letter from VNECA, so it was effective Monday or Tuesday, whenever that was. But after many, many years of service with BWXT, she's retiring, so if you would like to, please reach out and congratulate her on that. And it also prompted us, we need to do a check-in to make sure, because I know we also had with David Christian at Dominion, to make sure we're adding the new members from the companies that may have rolled off.
And I did get assurance that we did think that all of them were going to be reappointed, and the new appointment was noted, and they should get back to me, hopefully by the end of this week.
Great, perfect. So, and then unless there's anything else that the group, anyone wanted to raise now, otherwise we can wait for our new business section and move on to that program. Great, so I'm going to turn it over to Tom Dolan, who's here to talk to us about a new initiative he's working with. So.
Okay, thanks a lot for having me, especially Tom and Brandy for getting me in here to kind of give this little presentation. It's basically, I want to talk to you about an exceptional opportunity to enable Virginia to capture a larger share of a $1.2 trillion energy business. Now, for the most part, most people from any walk of life here in Virginia or the rest of the country, they really don't know too much about energy. They're very concerned with what their kids are doing that day, grandkids, what they're going to have for dinner that night, sports, crime, stretching the budget. So when it comes to things nuclear or even energy nuclear, they don't really have a good feel of what it's all about. If you think about the next thing with energy, what do most people usually come up with when you ask them about energy? They usually say price. It's a big thing with them because to keep the budgets within normal, hey, turn out the lights, turn this off, don't walk out without. However, from an energy or energy policy standpoint, they are not very well informed on any energy stuff other than knowing that fossil fuels are not a good or green way to make energy. Especially with the global climate change scheme of things, or they've heard that in the mass media. So people have been educated about the best way to provide a clean and green future for their kids by recycling items that were once just waste. So from an energy standpoint, Virginia and the rest of the country can actually learn that used or spent nuclear fuel too can be recycled. You know, nuclear energy is still one of the safest energy systems out there. We need to kind of get the word out. So this brings us to why I'm here today is we understand things from a technical point of the nuclear energy, especially my colleague Steve. He's out there with the remote sensing lab in Nevada. However, we also understand items from the other people, which would be from Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, Sierra Club, where they have a concern or a stance on spent nuclear fuel that could cloud or fog the advantages of carbon-free and clean energy. One of the biggest obstacles that's actually, you know, holding us back from the future of nuclear industry is what to do with spent nuclear fuel. It is highly radioactive and will remain so for hundreds of thousands of years. How can that be changed? Nobody's coming up with any great ideas. But by recycling the nuclear fuel, it can be used in the next generation energy-producing nuclear sites. The resultant fuel radioactivity can be reduced to roughly 300 years versus the hundreds of thousands of years, as is in the government's current role in the direct burial of it, like in Yucca Mountain, which is not going to happen anytime soon. With all of that being said, can't believe it's 43 years since Gerald Ford actually said no more recycling of the spent fuel. It's time to take care of the problem instead of giving it to our kids and grandkids. It's not their problem to solve, it's our problem to solve. Spent nuclear fuel that is currently stored at each and every commercial place, which would be Lake Anna, Surrey, that stuff can be safely recycled, and it can be safely and economically done, as it's been in France, Great Britain, and also Russia for over the past 50 years. Right now, it's costing taxpayers $2.2 million a day to store it on site. Wow. We no longer see aluminum can as garbage, but see it as a recyclable material that can be reused for the greater good of the planet. The spent nuclear fuel should not be treated any differently. Spent nuclear fuel still contains, about 95% energy that can still beneficially produce carbon-free safely for roughly 100 to 150 years into the future. That's not my number, but I've seen it in enough places. Another added benefit, we have a ban here in Virginia for mining of uranium. Well, this will offset any mining or ban that we have here in Virginia for uranium ore for a great distance in the future. Once Virginia agrees to recycle the already stockpiled fuel, a lot of the systems that could already be doing it. We have some of the American companies are actually installing small modular reactors in other countries. I believe Bulgaria right now. We should be having it here. Let's reuse what we have in our country. We could power us for a long time to go. Once Virginia agrees to take the spent nuclear fuel, we could ask the federal government to give us a carbon-free national laboratory to work together with solar, wind, any other emerging places in the future that would have some sort of carbon-free footprint to actually give us fuel. We need a base load system, which is nuclear. We can, at least that point, we can transition away from fossil fuels, and Virginia can enjoy probably $5 billion a year income through it. All these other countries are getting reactors put in there, China, Russia, they're exporting their stuff. We've been stalemated here for a long time. We need to move forward with this. It's not gonna happen tomorrow, it's not gonna happen overnight, but we need companies and government to actually start changing it. I've approached Denver Riggleman, and he's approached Congresswoman Luria on this, and they both had co-sponsored the Virginia Nuclear Energy Leadership Act. Well, if you want to be leadership, we need to have all parts of the puzzle, not just a couple of pieces to make it actually happen. Right now, microgrid, that's what we need to start putting in here. This is all part that could be done through the national laboratories and for future business here in Virginia. It's a lot of money. We can work together with all groups to get this done, especially recycled nuclear fuel. Don't bury it, use it. At that point, we should all work together to educate the public in a consolidated base fact effort. This way they can tell their officials, elected officials, what they want to do. Not up to us, but once we teach them, most people will come around and understand that it's a good thing. Just give them all the pieces of the puzzle instead of separate pieces. Let us start to work together now so we can actually be not us or them, but work together on a collaborated effort to solar, wind, geothermal, nuclear, among others. This way we can place Virginia in a position to lead clean and effective change in our energy-hungry world. It's not hard to see Virginia gaining a large share of the $50 billion a year energy business, especially with recycling. New jobs, new people around it to support it. It's all good. We can shake hands. We can do it. You need to work together instead of individually. And we're trying to get a grassroots effort here to start putting it together. We can talk to, Congress people, politicians. They need to be educated too. Because right now, most of the people in this room have a good idea what's going on. Walk outside the building, down the block, they don't have a clue. And it's not a hard thing to do. And if we can help anything, education's the way. So, at that point, I finished faster than I expected. Any questions, any comments?
So what's, sorry. So what do you view as the next, what the first steps for Virginia? Obviously, education, I think there's a lot of discussion out there on back end of the fuel cycle and as it relates to new reactors, existing reactors, all that. But what do you see as the Virginia specific next step?
Virginia specific, at this point, we need to have a program office in place. Program office would be somebody that we could actually find out, start putting the outreach programs out through American Nuclear Society, other societies that are out there to teach the public. Whether it's online, that would be a big thing with newer generations now, because they don't want to go to a meeting. But you can put stuff online for them to teach and understand about it, and sign up and say, hey, how do you want to help? Also, to go ahead to other politicians that, hey, let's teach them about it. Why is it good for them? Especially when you tell them the influx of money that could come in from the federal government. There's a fund right now of $40 billion. It's just sitting there. It was collected from everybody who ever had electricity produced by a nuclear facility. At that point, that money can go into Virginia, or the first state who says, yes, I want to consent to having spent nuclear fuel. Most people today don't understand that Norfolk, Virginia, the naval base, they take stuff off the nuclear subs and the aircraft carriers and transported through Virginia all the way to Idaho several times a year. Okay, so it's already being transported at this point. So let's go and say at Surrey or Lake Anna, hey, most people say, not in my backyard, let's do a recycling plant at one of these and accept it. And this is where the federal government will say, well, we don't have to pay that $2.2 million anymore, let's get started. At this point, I understand there's a lot of different agendas, different companies, what they look at, but at the same point, with an influx of this type of money to the state, everyone can figure out how to use that best to kind of promote the recycling of it.
Where would the program office, would that be a state level office, like in state agency, or how?
Well, it would be good if it was a state agency. I mean, let's say you put one in under BNEC, right? But it could be outside the state agency too. But it would need to be funded in some sort of way to actually get started. But the thing is, education is needed. I mean, even, you see stuff all the time on TV. It's not gonna take that much of an effort to get this through STEM-based programs in the schools, a few lectures in some key places, because I see that it's a lot higher level of, this type of stuff. I mean, you are intelligent people in here, amazingly, but it's not trickling down to the general public, okay? And then you have the different groups who are against this. Let's find out how everybody wants to work together. It'll happen. It's just a matter, out there in, the Nevada, Steve's been talking to these people, and they're like, wow, didn't know it. I've been grabbing people standing in line for food or something. Hey, do you know anything about it? No. I'm like, oh, how many people died here? How many died? Oh, thousands. I'm like, no, nobody died from Fukushima. The mass panic from leaving it, yeah, a lot of people died. But, it's safe. And it's carbon-free, it's, clean energy. And it needs to be a base load for, wind, solar, whoever else. But, at this point, there is a plan on this handout here. It's a 4-pager. This is just a preliminary plan on how, or next steps, a little backup on it. And then at the same time, you have, past that, we're going to be at the American Nuclear Society's winter program and expo. Then you have a whole bunch of letters from Arriva, Westinghouse, from back in 2010 or 2012. Letters saying, hey, let's start recycling. They're ready. Okay, it'll probably take a little while to ramp up, but there's other businesses out there right now. The company Regina's with and retiring from. That's the place, there are places that want to do it. All we need to do is start getting to the politicians. Right now, let's ride on the coattail of the Leadership Act. There's other acts that are out there too. I'm trying to teach people through my website. It's kind of tough. It's just 2 of us right now, I have to go out in my boat this weekend, it's like, but at the same point, this is an important thing for Virginia and its citizens.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Are there, from the environmentalist perspective, and other groups are opposed, are there objections that are specific to spending CO2 as opposed to their general objections to nuclear power?
That's a really wide-ranging question. I'm not sure about each place. There's divided factions on a lot of the groups anyhow. But at the same point, unless there's a better solution, I'm always trying to look for solutions. A couple of companies I had were a solution-based type of thing, think tank. But maybe they have a better solution, but come up with it. Right now, the radioactivity is hundreds of thousands of years into the future. I believe Andrew Hutton has a solution for it by, burning these actinoids, the different bad stuff, and you can still recycle it and move it into the future. We could power this country for quite some time with 60 years worth of spent nuclear fuel that's just sitting around instead of burying it.
I would just say from my experience, I think yes, the answer is there's a lot more worry about spent nuclear fuel and reprocessing. And it just opens up a lot of additional worries to the people who would generally be opposed to it. Like even, you know, reprocessing for nuclear weapons, for example. I mean, whether it's based in fact or not, doesn't seem to matter.
That's where
But
education to disability.
you know, and I think, you know, some of it goes back to maybe the original reasons why President Ford signed that act to begin with, you know, so I think those perceptions still persist.
I remember in grade school, terrified, okay, go underneath the desk, hold your head, you know? It's like these you know, these raids, but I got past it, I learned it, you know? I didn't really have a clue when I first started this stuff, you know? A lot of people have turned 180 degrees in the other direction, but you have to get the word out there, you need to do it. You know, it's the way to do it.
It's a hard road. When I worked at the uranium enrichment facility in southern New Mexico, we didn't use the word waste when we were doing licensing. We called it byproduct.
That's right. I mean, it's sometimes it's semantics. I mean, it's not reprocessing. Reprocessing is getting the plutonium out for bombs. Well, this grade plutonium is not specifically good for making bombs. Okay, let's put this stuff together. I mean, it's all a tough road. I mean, if you're an engineer, you might know the gentleman who did the SR-71. Okay, he's my hero. Okay, Kelly Johnson. Take all government intervention out of it, I'll build you something that flies higher and faster than anything else. 1 year, you had the SR-71. It's possible. Okay, it's an uphill road, but everything is possible if you put your mind to it. I understand, you know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at this, but let's get something started. I mean, maybe it's not here, but maybe one of you pass my card along or take a look at something and say, hey, I know somebody you should talk to. That's how it is. I used to stand in the line and say nothing, okay? You know, then I started just talking, and you just never know who you're sitting next to.
So first of all, obviously I'm in favour. So I saw in the newspaper that the latest statistics were that more people are now positively viewing nuclear than negatively. That's the first time that's happened, and that's due to the carbon-free. What I missed in your talk is, and this is what we're all going to rally around, it's sort of a feel-good talk, and yeah, we ought to do something, but where am I going to go and rally around? Where do you ask people to rally around? I think we need to define that.
I understand that. That's part of that plan that my cohort has at this point. This is just like, okay, is anybody interested? Suggestions, let's sit down and talk. At that point, we can go forward. I mean, a lot of this stuff is public perception of this. I mean, I would like to propose a license plate. Hey, carbon-free energy, get all three on there. Well, guess what? When people see that, what's that about? You know, people working at different places who, I work at the nuclear plant.
Point of view.
For it. It's only
Quanto
something
valore
else,
c'è?
different
Quanto-
method of
always
getting it.
ask myself, what added value is there from space
Yeah, I'm not
work
sure how
and space
long
travel?
it can go on without having funding or backing, but I'm sure somebody in here might have some way to go forward with this. And, you know, as you can see, it's something the country needs. I mean, whether it's gonna be here in Virginia or not, it needs to move forward. We can't leave it for our, kids and grandkids. Especially my son, okay? Don't wanna really leave stuff to be decided by him, but, it just happens, so. He's good with some stuff, but, I mean, education-wise, I even put up a little nuclear ed for education. Let's, you can do all sorts of different things. It doesn't take much. But I'm looking for an avenue to move forward. And if I can, I would love to work with this group here in the state. If not, I'll find someone else. But that's why we're gonna be at the Nuclear Society's, you know, winter program in Expo, because you never know who's gonna be out there. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.